Hi, my name is Caitlin, and yesterday I saw Insurgent the movie. I'm just gonna start this video off by admitting to the fact that I have read the entire Divergent trilogy, excluding for a Divergent collection, and I saw the first Divergent movie when it first came out in theaters, and I didn't like it. I know that Divergent got a lot of love from a lot of people. They thought it was a truly fantastic adaptation, but I was unimpressed. I went to see it with two people. One of them had read the book, one of them hadn't. And when we walked out of the theater, the first thing they said was, one, it was boring, two, they were confused, and three, they just didn't really understand what the whole point of it was. And sadly, I kind of agreed. One of the main issues I had with Divergent was that I felt like as an adaptation, maybe it was okay, but it couldn't really stand on its own merit. I mean, don't get me wrong. In a perfect world, everybody would read the book before they went and saw the movie, but the reality of the matter is that they don't. So a movie needs to be able to, like I said, stand on its own merit. Someone who hasn't read the book needs to be able to go and see the movie and comprehend what's going on. They can't walk out totally confused because that's going to hurt the franchise. I also had some issues with the characters in that movie, like a sense of who the characters were as individuals and even, like being thoroughly introduced to them and having the chance to grow attached. For example, Will versus Al. In that movie, you see each of them like a couple of seconds and then they're gone. And then they don't show up again until their important scene. But the problem is, Will and Al looked the same, and in looking the same, they looked like all the other initiates. So when you had them in a crowd, I couldn't tell who was Will, who was Al, and who was unnamed character number 34. That was an issue. And then, the scene where Triss is assaulted, you never really get a sense of the fact that Al was connected, that it hurt her so badly because they were such good friends, and that, he felt such guilt and he was having such a hard time, and that's why he killed himself. In fact, when he dies, you don't care because he's a character you didn't even know. They might have just thrown someone else off a cliff. Nobody would have known the difference. And the same situation arose at the end with the scenario with Will when he died, because you never really get a sense that he and Triss are really good friends, and there's only a few seconds even indicating that Will and Christina have a relationship. And in that scene, in that tense showdown scene where it's Triss versus Will and she has to shoot him, you don't know it's Will until she says it's Will. Not because you haven't read the books, which I have, but because he looks like everybody else. My issue with Shailene Woodley and Theo James playing Triss and 4 was that Shailene is in her 20s playing a 16, 17-year-old. And she looks like she's a 16 or 17-year-old. Theo James is a 30-year-old trying to play an 18-year-old, but he looks 30. So it kind of made me uncomfortable because I'm watching this, trying to justify it in my mind, when all I see on screen are these love scenes between a man and a child. That's illegal. On top of that, I did have huge issues with the character of Uriah being excluded from the story because, as everybody who's read the books knows, Uriah was a pretty important character. He, was one of Triss's closest friends throughout all 3 books, and for him to be excluded completely from the first one, I think really hurt the plot. And one of my biggest issues was freaking Peter. I'm not sure if it's Miles Teller just being a good actor, because I like Miles Teller, but you never really get a sense in Divergent, the movie, that Peter's a bad guy. You kind of get the sense that he's a decent guy, kind of obnoxious, kind of sarcastic, and doesn't like Triss, but you don't realize how bad and how corrupt he is, because they skipped out on the Edward getting stabbed in the eye with a butter knife scene because he was 1 point ahead of Peter. And I understand that that was included in the special effects or the special features or whatever on the released version in the deleted scenes. but it needed to be in the movie to give you a sense of who Peter was, because without that, you don't know that he is this corrupt guy, that he's bad. You don't realize that he orchestrated the attack against Tris by Al. You don't understand just how twisted he is and how much of a danger he is to Tris and to everybody else. That being said, going into Insurgent, I had really low expectations because, like I said, everybody hyped up the Divergent movie way up here, and I went in kind of excited because I really, really enjoyed the Divergent book. But I went in and I came away really disappointed because I didn't think it deserved the hype. So when these same people who loved the Divergent movie came out saying, Insurgent is crap, it's not very good, it's not a good adaptation, I was like, okay, well, if people who loved the first one didn't like this one, that probably means this one's even worse. But I went and I saw it in IMAX 3D. And I'm just going to say, right off the bat, I liked the book Divergent. I thought Insurgent was just okay as a book. But as a movie, I thought it was excellent. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not anywhere near the closest adaptation it could have been. Like, there were so many changes, I don't even know where to start with that. But as a movie, as a standalone movie, it was able to stand on its own merit. It was fast-paced, it was enjoyable, it had a definitive plot, the characters were recognizable, and you could leave there not having read the books or having read the books a long time ago and not be confused. I went and saw it with my husband. He went with me when I saw Divergent and he didn't understand it. Insurgent, he came away not loving it, but he was like, yeah, that was an alright movie, and he wasn't overly confused about anything. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to Insurgent, I do acknowledge that there were a few obvious changes from the book to the movie. Even having not read the book in a while, it's impossible not to recognize the changes, such as, the face scanners to identify what faction you're in, or if you're Divergent. The box that you had to take all the simulations through. The fact that Four knew that his mother was alive and had known for a year, indicating that he knew before he even met Tris that his mom was alive and well out there. But at the same time, I feel like it added to the plot. Personally, having read Insurgent the book, I did feel that it was a little bit lacking in plot. But I feel like their incorporation of these new items, the scanners and the box especially, definitely added to some plot, gave it a more centralized, identifiable plot line. And I enjoyed that. I know it didn't really fit in with the book very well, but I don't think it actually took away anything important from the plot line that the book would have had contributed, and this didn't. I think that in all, it's going to work out just fine. I don't think there's anything that's going to have ruined the franchise at all. In fact, I think it improved it. Some of the things that I did like about the movie were things like you get a much better sense of the characters. On top of that, I'm really glad they finally introduced us to Uriah. We only saw him for like 3 minutes. He only had a couple of lines. But you do get a sense of his character in this. And you like his character. I even like Janine. I'm not really sure where it comes from, but I'm really enjoying the fact that these adaptations are taking the big bad guy who, there's nothing about them. They're just straight evil. But they're kind of giving you a glimpse into what makes them like that, like what their motivations are, how they have feelings outside of this need for evil and control. And they did that excellently with Janine. I enjoy her character, actually, and I hated her in the books. Definitely an Insurgent. The relationship between Four and Tris was a lot less creepy. I'm honestly not sure if Tris or Shailene Woodley looks older, or maybe they did something with Theo James' makeup to make Four look actually a little younger, but there was less of a huge, obnoxious age gap in there. At least a less obvious one. On top of that, I really liked their relationship. They didn't spend as much time together, they didn't spend as much time loving on each other, and there was a lot of tension in their relationship. But there was a lot less tension in the movie's version of the relationship than in the book's version, and I liked that because to me, that's one of the things that bothered me about the book, was there was butting heads and there was no true connection there anymore. And you get a true connection and you feel their love for each other in this one, and I really appreciated that. I really like Joanna and Amity. She's really interesting, and you get a good sense that there's something else about her that you don't know, and you definitely want to get to know her better. And I definitely thought they did an excellent job with Peter in this. Like I said, they actually did stuff to make him redeemable in this one, and they gave you an idea of some of the messed up things he's done that cause him to be redeemable. But there's no doubt in my mind that he stole this show. Like, he took it and he ran the hell away. Like, he was hilarious, first off. Like, even when he was being an asshole, even when he was being corrupt, even when he was messing up everybody's lives and being selfish and evil, he was hilarious. Like, I loved every second of it. Like, he was talking shit to Triss about how she got her family killed. He managed to do it without making me hate him. And there's this scene in there where they're trying to escape and they have like seconds before they're captured. And instead of running for it, you know, Four and Triss just choose that moment to be like, oh, I love you. Let me caress your face and let's kiss a lot. And I'm just sitting there going like, what in the hell are you doing? And so was Peter, because after a minute he's just like, yeah, you can do that later. Let's go. And that made me laugh. And then the scene when he goes in and talks to Janine, and she's like, well, what are your motivations? What do you want to do here? And he's like, you know, I'm just looking for a job. I want to be able to move up in the corporation. Oh my gosh, he's the best. Just the best. I'm not sure, honestly, looking back on it, like I said again, I'm not sure if the problem with Peter being more likable and less corrupt in the movies than he was in the books has anything to do with how they've written him, or if it's just friggin' Miles Teller. Like, I know a lot of people do have issues with him, and I'm not sure if it's just because of the characters he played. Like, in Spectacular Now, he was a douchebag, and obviously he plays Peter in this series, but I really like him. Like, he's just so goofy and likable and lovable. Like, it's impossible to dislike him, even when he's being a colossal asshole. Like, he's just so cool. Like, I like his face, I like his voice, I like his personality, and I think he's a good actor, and I can't wait to see more of him because he cracks me up. Don't get me wrong, I did have a few issues with the movie. One of them was in the scene with the truth serum in Candor. I really liked how they did Triss's scene. You know, I got the emotion, I got the pain, but I wish that they would have incorporated the more difficult aspects into Four's truth serum experience. Because in the book, you know, he has that final moment where he admits that he joined Dauntless because he was terrified of his dad. And it's like such an emotional scene, and then he's kind of looked down upon because of it, because, you know, Dauntless is supposed to be brave, and he admits he joined Dauntless because he was afraid. I mean, overall, I didn't think it was too bad. I guess it wasn't technically necessary, but I just felt like I kind of missed that scene. And honestly, I'm also kind of thrown off by Four's mom. Like, you know, he's a 30-year-old who looks like a 30-year-old, and I'm not sure how old she is in real life, but you know that scene where you first see them together, and he's like, mother. And it's like, she looks like she's 20. You're 30. How is she your mom? One of my biggest issues with that movie was the ending. I kind of was thrown off a little bit by the fact that Evelyn Eaton was not actually corrupt like she was in the books. But that was fine. What really threw me off was the fact that when they all find out the truth, everybody's cheering, they're happy, and they go marching towards the wall, like they're excited about it. And that kind of wasn't really making sense. I'm not sure how they're going to go about it with the Allegiant movie, because, you know, in the Allegiant book, it was everything was in chaos back in old Chicago, and then Triss and Four and all of them went across outside the wall to kind of figure out what was going on there. But in the movie, everybody is going towards the wall and everybody's celebrating, so I'm not really sure how that's going to go down. And one thing that really did throw me off was the fact that, like I said, everybody was so happy about it. When in reality, in the book, first off, that's not how the whole answer comes about. But secondly, the last line of the book has nothing to do with everybody celebrating. It's literally that projection plays for everybody to see, and then this line. Then the shouting begins. and that's the last line of the book. And that's not a happy last line. It's not, and then the cheering began. Then the shouting began. As far as Allegiant goes, I didn't like the book. I thought it was rushed to be put out. I feel like maybe Veronica Roth was put under a little too much pressure to try to get it done in this period of time. I think she probably could have used a little more time to kind of streamline the process, a little more editing, maybe a couple more drafts. And I don't really think that's on her. I think that there's just too much pressure being put on some authors of popular books. As far as reading the books went, I loved Divergent. I thought Insurgent was okay, and I didn't like Allegiant. Not because of the finale, because I thought that worked. I thought it was a really brave move on Veronica Roth's part. I thought it was staying true to the character. Just like I said, I feel like she was rushed to put it out and she didn't have a chance to streamline it as much as she could have. But as far as the movies have gone so far, I didn't like Divergent. I liked Insurgent, so I'm wondering if maybe I'll love Allegiant, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. I'm also keeping my fingers crossed that it's a one movie, not a split movie, because I don't know how that's even going to work. But after watching Insurgent, I am reinvested in the franchise and I'm really looking forward to it. So I would like to recommend that if you did like the series, but you didn't like the Divergent movie, go ahead and give Insurgent a chance. I think it'll be worth it. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions for me, go ahead and comment them down below. If you like my video, give my video a like. If you really liked it, hit subscribe. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
So hot out the box, can we pick up the pace? Turn it up, heat it up.